Hey guys, what's going on? Long time no see. I've been super busy and then I'm in the process of moving right now. So I just haven't had too much time, but things have been getting done on the MR2. So I'm just figured this is a good chance for me to give you guys a little update. Since the last video, I have gotten the turbo on, all my lines ran, fuel lines, fuel rail with my 2000cc injectors. I basically got jacked on the first set, and so that kind of set me back a little bit, but nonetheless, I got another set and they're all installed, ready to go. Word to the wise, just make sure you always do pay for services on PayPal, because I learned my lesson. But anyways, all the lines are hooked up. I put my catch can back in the corner there. You can just barely see it. And I ran those 10 AN lines going back there. My fuel pressure regulator is also back there, where my fuel rail is going back to. I also got my coolant reservoir kind of tucked in a corner there. My buddy did the same spot and I just liked it a lot. I thought it looked good and it kind of hides it away. I also got the fuse box mounted up right there. I need to put one more screw on the bottom. I think I might have showed that in my last video. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a piece of plate here. I'm not sure if I'm gonna run aluminum or steel, because after kind of running all my lines and everything, there's a few things that need to mount to the firewall, like my ignition deal here. And I just don't see myself extending those wires any so that I can tuck them away somewhere. And this being completely open gives me nothing to mount against. I also need to get the intercooler back in here, since I had to cut that bar out for the manifold, but that's coming as well. But I should be able to get at least it started, hopefully before I leave. The wiring and stuff is a lot more involved than I thought it was gonna be. You know, of course I just thought like I was just gonna plug in some wires and stuff, just being kind of a noob. But turns out there's a lot of stuff that's deleted, stuff that I'm not gonna use, like the AC, the catalytic converter, the O2 sensor, the power going to my original intercooler there in the corner. So it's just kind of trial and error and trying to figure out what everything is. I should have labeled, well, I couldn't have labeled because this is a new harness. And then also, the first harness I bought, the one that was with this engine, was super rough. It's sitting over there on the chair, and it's like spliced into a bunch of times and all kinds of nasty shit, and it's just not wrapped or loomed correctly. And so I bought like basically a mint Gen 3 harness, and I've been slowly putting like the injector connectors on. I had to get a new TPS connector. There's a couple different things I had to lengthen as well. But so right now I'm kind of doing just a dry run and hooking it all up. And then once I start it and I know everything's good, I will take it back off again, unfortunately, and re-lume it and make it look all nice and everything, just for the aesthetic part. Just over the weekend, I got this bracket kind of mocked up for my throttle cable. I had to go with a Gen 4 extended throttle cable, or tuck friendly, off of MR2 Heaven, because the stock throttle cable was not going to be able to reach down on top of my manifold. So just to give you guys kind of an idea of what I'm talking about. So as you can see, this is the throttle cable. It swoops down currently right here and comes on down, and then it ends up right here. Now, this had to be extended out a little bit, and then obviously you need this little fork to be able to go down into my manifold, or into my my throttle body. So that's kind of just a rough mock-up of what the angle and everything has to be, and I'm gonna try to remake that and kind of do a little S right here to kind of, I don't know, just make it look a little bit better. And I'm gonna use some heat so that I'm not just bending the steel and everything, because even with that little tiny piece of plate right there, it actually does bend a little bit when I hit the throttle. So if you have a mechanical speed sensor on your MR2 transmission, your E135, I believe it is, E153. I have a different connector on my harness than the stock one that was on my harness before, and so I'm gonna have to figure out that. I've found a little bit of write-ups on that, but nothing just straight specific that's the connector. And so again, I'm kind of doing trial and error and finding connectors and kind of, I've had my friend over here with an MR2 to kind of match them up a little bit. But there's just, with it being just a completely different engine and a lot of stuff deleted, it's actually kind of frightening how much stuff is unconnected. And so I'm just kind of being sure that everything is connected before I try to start it. Issue I ran into about a week or two ago, probably 3 weeks now, is the seal on the left-hand side of the transmission. Once I put the axles in, it leaked almost immediately with no fluid in it. So I swapped it out, but in the process, I bent the seal trying to use like a little punch to get it in there. And so I ended up buying one of those seal driver kits from Harbor Freight. Like 20 bucks, really good purchase. I mean, got the second seal went in flawlessly, but the second seal was from O'Reilly's, and I'm not sure the brand, but they're complete shit. And come to find out, my buddy Luis, that's been helping me a ton with this build and just kind of answering a bunch of questions, which also has a YouTube channel called VegasBoost, and I'll link it down in the description. The guy is solid, always answers questions, just an all-around cool dude. So definitely check out his channel. And but anyways, I bought the O'Reilly's and used the seal driver and everything. It went in, but immediately leaked as well. So got another Toyota seal and did the whole process over again, and it seems like it's not leaking. But I'm just gonna show you the difference of those two seals so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. So this is the Toyota seal, this brown one. It's a lot softer. And then as you can see, this grease in that channel in there. Let me see if I can get it to focus better. The grease in this channel right there, it comes stock with that. Like it comes from Toyota with that already in there. Where this guy is the one from O'Reilly's, and you can tell that I had to put the grease in there. And also, just all the rubber is extremely hard compared to the Toyota. It just isn't, I mean, I think that was 20 bucks, and I think the Toyota was very close to that, maybe 25. And it doesn't even compare. So highly recommend the Toyota always. I don't know about the right side. I didn't have any problems with the right side, but just for reference for you guys. So after all that crap with my right hand side, I actually have another issue, and I'm getting mixed reviews on what it is, but so right out of the CV joint, I packed that sucker full of grease. I tried to put as much as I could into the CV joint and just kind of around it, just because I didn't want to have any problems and I didn't want to have to do that again. But now it seems to be leaking like an oil out of the CV. And I've heard of molly grease and stuff like seeping in oil, but usually in my experience, it's always when there's a solvent introduced, and there hasn't been any solvents down there. And so it's really weird. And I really don't want to have to pull that CV joint again. And so I'm just gonna kind of do a temporary fix, maybe with some like RTV kind of situation. And even if I have to, some tape, just to kind of get the fucking thing started and possibly tuned with that before I have to tear that whole side off. It depends on how long the build takes. And between this move and getting my car up to the new shop up in Carson, I'm kind of iffy on whether or not to pull that side, but if I have plenty of time and it's in between, you know, me getting the finances and the time to go tune it, I'll probably pull that side off and figure out what's going on. In the CV joint, there's like a little seal that's made out of like almost like a cardboard material, and I'm thinking that's what I fucked up on. Like somehow it just didn't adhere to very well, and then when it got compressed, there was some hole or something. And then again, once I told Luis about that, he said that he had put a little bit of like, it wasn't RTV, but it was something very similar in there just to be sure that the seal was completely done when it was pressed together and all tightened down and torqued. Also, just to touch back on that fuel rail and the injectors, the injectors are they were 2200 cc injectors. They came with the plugs and everything. I thought I had lost the hats, the little, not the hats, the little cups that they sit in on the head. And so I ended up having to buy a whole new rail with the cups. I ended up buying one of those rails on eBay, and I know that people have their opinions about some of the eBay stuff, but that rail, the rail isn't on here. I actually gave it to a friend, and then I ended up finding those fucking cups. But either way, that whole setup, it came with all the AN fittings, it came with the cups and everything, and it was only 50 bucks. And the thing, I mean, in my opinion, the thing is just as good as something that is made by like a big manufacturer. So I highly recommend that if you guys are looking for a fuel rail. 50 bucks, you can't beat that. And a fuel rail is not like super complicated as long as it's CNC'd correctly and everything. So just a good buy and something that to save you a little bit of money if you're trying to do some modifications to your MR2. Also, in the meantime, between the last time I made a video, my buddy Jacob, that also has an MR2, brought over some, I said in an earlier video that I wanted to change the stance of the car. I wanted to go with maybe like a wider tire and maybe a wider rim on the front and rear. And he has the exact same offset of a rim. I can't remember the brand, but the same offset as mine, but he had 225s, and I believe they were 45 ratio on the front. And I'll show you guys a picture of it. I think it looked really good with that. Just a little bit of poke up front just changes the entire stance of the car. The only issue is that when totally locked to one of the sides, it touches the back of the fender well. And so I'm taking it, I could probably fix that with offset, but that's gonna also tuck the tire out even more. So I'm just gonna see what I can do. Maybe he's gonna bring them back over, hopefully, or he has them on his car right now, I'm sorry. But I'd like to probably take one off again and then see if I can put a spacer behind it and see if it changes anything, because I would rather not have to sell my Inkies, and because I would just probably get another set of Inkies. And so that would suck, but in the end, I really liked how that looked. And just adding like a little bit more tread up front and a little bit more meat in the front and the rear, like a 265 maybe. The 255s look really good, don't get me wrong. But my key would be like a 265, a 275 if I went with like drag radials or something, or like, you know, Mickey Thompson street tires. But just it was cool to be able to see that on there. Those black rims also I thought looked really good. And so that was really nice of him for doing that, and kind of gave me an idea before I spent the money on getting a 225. So 225 with, I believe, 38 offset definitely rubs on full lock. The rears I think are 18 offset. If I'm not mistaken, I might have to correct myself in the description, but I think they're 18 offset, and those have some area. I have more room that I could go with like a 265 or something, but the fronts definitely, with my offset 38, I'm almost certain it's 38. I'll double check. All right, so I had it written down, luckily, because I've checked these so many times and wanted to kind of look into different offsets and everything. So I have 17 and 9.5 in the back at an 18 off, and then I have 17 eighths in the front with a 35 offset. So definitely 35 offset with a 225 tire with 45 ratio at 17 inches. Definitely rubs when full lock to the side. With fenders pulled and rolled, they don't rub that way, but they definitely roll when you full lock. So you would never, I mean, you could drive them on the street, but you'd be doing a lot of like 3-point turns and shit. It'd be just embarrassing. And you'd probably rub more than anything. So, but I got to do more research on that. That will definitely be coming in the next few months. But first, just getting this puppy tuned and getting her, I just need to hear it run. All right, guys, I think that's going to be the end of this check-in. Hopefully next video you guys will see it at least turning over and maybe sputtering a little bit. I just need to get that wiring done, as I said, get some fluids in it, do a final nut and bolt check, and get a base map. And it should turn over, it should run. It's definitely not boost season here right now, so I'm not feeling like too bad for myself. It's 102 here in the shop right now, and so I'm dying. So I hope everybody's having a good summer and a safe summer, and I'll check in with you guys next time. Thanks for watching.